Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lead Up Teach with myself and Laura Gilchrist. I'm Elizabeth Bostwick, and I'm an educator in New York. I'm passionate about empowering learners by fostering a culture where innovative thinking flourishes and all students shine. Tonight, we're excited to welcome Shelley Burgess and Beth Houf, co-authors of Lead Like a Pirate. We can't wait to discuss what it takes to lead like a pirate. Shelley has served as an award-winning teacher, principal, Director of Student Achievement, and Assistant Superintendent of Educational Leadership. She's also the co-author of Pia's for Pirate, Inspirational ABCs for Educators in Lead Like a Pirate. Beth Houf is a middle school principal who's passionate about innovative and transformational leadership to maximize school culture and student and staff learning. Both are passionate leaders in education who inspire. Laura, before we get started, please take a minute and introduce yourself.
All right, my name is Laura Gilchrist. I'm an instructional coach and longtime teacher in Kansas City. I'm passionate about designing learning experiences, schools, and cities around our kids so they walk confidently into their futures, self-identifying as learners and leaders. Shelley and Beth, we are doubly excited to have you on tonight. So our viewers can find you on Twitter, which is a very good thing. Shelley is at Burgess_Shelley, and that's EY at the end. And Beth is at Beth Houf, and that's HOUF. And Beth, I'm saying that correctly.
Perfect.
I'm so happy. I just had to freak out like internally. Their website, you gotta go to this one. It's leadlikeapirate.net. Shelley and Beth, we are ready to be inspired by you. Please introduce yourselves.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. My name is Beth Houf. I'm the very proud principal, as you said, of Fulton Middle School here in the middle of Missouri. I have been here for the past 3 years, and prior to that was an elementary school principal. And even before that, 10 years ago, I was a 4th and 5th grade teacher. And I am also the proud mom of 2 boys. I have a 14-year-old who's been with me for 9 years, and I'm here at as a principal, so he's been with me his whole life, but the past 9 years as his principal, he is ready to go to high school, and then I have a 7-year-old also. Thanks so much for having us here tonight.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Laura, for having us on tonight. As you said, I'm Shelley Burgess, co-author of Lead Like a Pirate with the amazing Beth Houf. My educational leadership experience, I've been a principal, director of student achievement, assistant superintendent of educational leadership, which was a fabulous role, which really focused on coaching principals, super fun job. And now actually I serve full-time working with my husband, Dave Burgess. We run an educational consulting and publishing company where we get really have the awesome pleasure of sharing and highlighting the work of great educators across the country in the books that they put out, the speaking that they do. Like Beth, I'm also the mother of 2. I have 2 incredible teenagers, 17 and 14, and really appreciate being on the show. Thanks for having us.
Well, welcome to both of you, and we're so excited to have you here. We also want to give a special welcome to our Lead Up Teach audience on both our YouTube and podcast channels. We invite everyone to use the hashtag #LeadUpTeach to connect and participate. To get us started, please share about your journey that has led you to be the inspiring educator that you are today.
All right, Shelley, would you like me to start?
Sure.
Just keep taking turns. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many stories I think that I could share, but I feel like probably the biggest story that I could talk a little bit about that brought Shelley and I together is that in 2014, I was actually at the point where I was ready to change careers and get out of the field of education. I was burnt out, and I was really disillusioned with the standardized testing culture that had really built up in our world. And at that time, I was an elementary principal. I had been the principal 2 weeks before I became principal. In 2008, we found out we were considered a failing school. So that meant that in a town that's very small, 3 elementary schools, I had to send letters to all of our parents as a new principal saying our school is failing. And if you would like to go send your child to one of the other 2 elementary schools, you're more than welcome to do that. And so we, as a team and as a staff, we had to get our test scores up, which was a very interesting start to my ed leadership role. So we were one of the first schools to get off of that list in the state of Missouri. So that was awesome. A lot of celebrating there. But in 2014, I just kind of hit that wall. And I had a colleague in in town that taught at or was principal of another elementary school. And she said, hey, we need to go to the principal conference. The national principal conference is in Nashville. Let's go. And I was kind of like, I'm burnt out. I'm not even going to go, but it's in Nashville. So we'll have fun. So at least if anything, we'll have fun. When we got down there, at one of the social events, we ran into these principals from New Jersey, and one of them, Jay Billy, who is now one of my dearest friends, and I know Shelley, I'm very connected with Shelley as well. He said, are you on Twitter? And I said, no, I have Twitter. I don't really, I'm not really into it. It's another form of how the Kardashians are doing. It's just not my thing. And he said, you are following the wrong people. Let me see your phone. And he took my phone, and my 40 followers completely blossomed. And he said, Todd Whitaker, you've already talked about him tonight. Why are you, you're not following him? He's on Twitter every day. And at that point I started realizing, because I was so alone in my role, he just opened that whole gateway of finding a tribe and finding a PLN for me. That same conversation that we were having, he said, hey, have you ever heard of Dave Burgess? And at that time I hadn't. He said, it's Teach Like a Pirate. I said, I have no idea what that is. And I like pirates though, so that sounds kind of fun. And what I did that night, he said, well, he's going to do a live Skype tomorrow. You should come and watch. And I was a little skeptical. So I Googled that, and I found a blog actually written by Shelley. And it was all about leading like a pirate. And it really grabbed my attention, because at that point I realized that's why I had lost my way. I had lost my why. I wasn't leading in the same way that I had been teaching. And for some reason I started taking my job way more seriously than I had fun every single day in the classroom. But for some reason I thought leadership wasn't supposed to be like that. So that moment, that dinner that I had with Jay opened up, it completely changed my life, because I was able to connect with Dave and then eventually Shelley. And then Shelley and I we started a friendship. Then we said, hey, let's write this book. Hadn't met in person, but through a Google Doc, Lead Like a Pirate started happening. So it definitely was life-changing, and I'm so blessed to where it's brought me today.
So Beth and I have some similar stories in terms of how we got started in leadership. I started my principal role as a K-6 principal. And when I was hired, my superintendent told me that I had two primary jobs. My jobs were to get test scores up and to increase staff morale. We had the very lovely distinction of being also, it wasn't called a failing school in California, but it's basically the same. We had test scores that were abysmal, and we had exactly the same kind of thing with No Child Left Behind. We were having to offer our parents student choice. We were, parents were fleeing. We actually had my first year when I came on, or prior to me coming on, over 50% of our staff had requested transfers out of the school. They didn't want to work there. Parents didn't want their kids there. And so that was kind of the charge I was given as a principal. And so we weren't calling it this or saying it this way that Beth and I talk about actually in Lead Like a Pirate, this idea that we want to create schools and systems where students and staff are running to get in rather than out. I had it's not that we framed it that way at that time, or that I did as a school, but that was the reality of the school that I took over. We needed people to stop fleeing out, and we needed to create a school where people wanted to be, where staff wanted to be, where students wanted to be. And so it really was about, how do you create that kind of school? And so test scores, of course, were important. They're important to all of us. When we talk about test scores, we don't want it to be all about test scores, but of course they're important. But really it's about the learning opportunities that we build for kids, and the experiences that we create for kids, and the experiences we create for staff, to design schools where students and staff want to be. And so that was really the journey that I had as a principal, and how do we make that school? Well, and as Beth said, then eventually we got connected through Dave, through Twitter, through social media connections, and put our heads together and created Lead Like a Pirate.
That's awesome. I love hearing the story from both of you. So let's jump into your book, Lead Like a Pirate. Please just paint a picture for us of a pirate leader and his or her actions. What's the big mental shift people have to make to jump from status quo leader to status pirate leader?
Right. Well, I'll go ahead and get started. I think the biggest thing Shelley's already talked a little bit about, it's all about being culture first, culture next, culture always, really developing schools where our students, our staff, our families are wanting to come to the school and not get out of the school. And I really think that becomes, as I describe that and when we talk together, we always talk about, that's kind of our mission as the principals or the leaders of those schools. That's what it's all about. And so that means doing whatever it takes. For those that aren't familiar with the PIRATE acronym, it means leading with passion. You can't fake passion. And I think as I shared my story, that was part of my problem, is I wasn't really leading with passion. I was leading more with practice of what I thought it was supposed to look like. It also means being immersed in what you're doing. PIRATE leaders are in the hallway, they're doing lunch duty, they're right there greeting kids, they're in classrooms, they're where the magic happens, and they know the magic isn't happening in their office. PIRATE leaders also have strong rapport. That's all about those relationships with everyone that's part of the school system. We also ask and analyze, and I know within ask and analyze, Shelley, this is her, she is amazing when she talks about anchor conversations. So I know that's her big passion. I'll let her share a little bit more about that too, but anchor conversations, showing that appreciation. And then we have transformation, which is what I get pretty hyped up about. It's taking the blah and making it bam. How can you make sure that you are always thinking, how could I make this better? For me, I think about staff learning is if, Dave asked the question, if a student didn't have to be in your classroom, would they still show up? And what lessons could you sell tickets to? Which those are two of my favorite interview questions that I have when we have new staff too. But I always think about that with staff learning or anything that I help facilitate. What would teachers say, or what would educators say? And then always ending with enthusiasm, that, you cannot fake passion, but you can enthusiasm. And for me as the educational leader, I'm always working to be that emotional guide for others, making sure PIRATE leaders, there should never be a reason why you would say you're not having a great day as a PIRATE leader. Sometimes you have to fake it till you make it.
So I agree with everything that Beth said. And I think that one thing that I would add to that is that part of the shift to PIRATE leadership, we talked about this idea that, yes, test scores are important, and test scores are something that we think about and that we have to pay attention to in our roles. But there's this shift when you are a PIRATE leader that's also about this. It's not just about test scores. It's about creating amazing learning experiences for kids. Because of course we, Beth and I think everybody who serves in a leadership role, we want the best readers. We want the best writers. We want the best mathematicians. But I think what's different, we also want science. We want art. We want music. We want incredible experiences for kids in our schools. And I think that one of the shifts that we talk to people about sometimes is that you don't have to keep serious learning and serious fun separate. That they're not mutually exclusive, that the two of those things can be combined together. And there's a great quote actually in Play Like a Pirate by Quinn Rollins that I love. That's just the idea that serious learning can also be seriously fun. And so I think that that's a component that sometimes you get so beat down in our roles, and there's so much responsibility when you're a principal, when you're assistant superintendent, that and we have this tendency to get so focused on the numbers and focused on the testing that we forget that great learning doesn't happen during like test prep packet seasons. Great learning happens through incredible experiences that are created by teachers in our classrooms. And so I think that's a big piece. And I think the second thing that I would add is that PIRATE leaders recognize that they don't have to do it alone, and that they recognize that we need to be passionate, but we also have to be responsible for bringing out the passions and the talents and the gifts and the people who work as a part of our team. They have so much to contribute. And when you tap into kind of the amazing of everyone who's on your staff, the things that you can create in your school are awesome. And so it's really, I think there's something a little freeing about realizing you don't have to be the only expert in the room. You don't have to be the only person who knows how to do something. You have whatever the size of your school, the size of your staff, you have people all around you who can help create those amazing experiences in your school. So those would just be a couple things I would add.
Great. And I want to jump in and add one. You made me think of something else, Shelley. Something that Shelley and I believe very deeply in as well is that when we talk about doing what's best for kids, that it really has as our role, for my role as principal in the building, doing what's best for kids means I'm taking care of the adults in the building, because I hope that every single day I can interact and have a positive impact on the 550 students that walk through the door. But I know that the 75 adults, if I'm supporting, if I'm inspiring, if I'm motivating them, they have a much higher chance of being able to do what's best for kids when their leaders are supporting them. So that is something I know that Shelley and I also feel, and she just reminded me of that. So wonderful.
Well, a couple things that resonated with me from you guys was the kind of bringing the energy, bringing it every day, no matter what, because kids need it. They need our smiles. They need our positivity. And looking for the good, looking for the ideas in people, seeking them out, acknowledging them, and then using those ideas from them instead of thinking that we have to do it all alone. So, wow, powerful. All right, next question is for Beth. Stories are fun, they're good, they're helpful. Please tell us some of the strategies and stories of how you've transformed your own school by leading like a pirate.
Wonderful. Well, I've had the blessing and honor to be principal of 2 schools. And at first, I thought I would stay at my other school. When I became a pirate, after I came back from that conference, I mean, it was just crazy amazing. It was the best year I'd ever had. And we transformed everything and really became a PLN ourselves within our school. And we were tweeting like crazy and created our hashtag. And then my superintendent came and said, "Hey, how would you like to go to the middle school?" And I immediately was like, "No way. Middle school is not the prime of my life. There's no way I'm going back." But after a lot of soul searching and thinking deeply, definitely what was needed for our district, and really, to be very honest, I left that comfort zone that I thought, I always tell other people to do that. And so definitely I did that. But the school that I that I'm at now, that I love, my family, is, we were struggling. We were very kind of what we talked about, that Shelley and I both talked about, not where we needed to be. Focus, the state was kind of we were not an official focus school, but we were on the short list. And so we had a lot of work to do, and culture was at a low. And so very first thing that we did was we transformed back to school. And the kids that had been in the building, they were definitely running to get out. The staff it was just not a happy place, a lot of turmoil, and just not happy. So we, the leadership team and I sat down and we said, okay, what are we going to do? And we knew immediately what we had to do is show that unified front, to show that we were a team, that together we can do anything. And so we dressed up the first day. Every staff member had a football jersey on. The assistant principal and I had our referee jersey or outfits on. We had the boom box out front when the kids got to school. The whole school we had a major facelift. So where you see our school colors now, the lockers got repainted. I mean, just completely different. And the first thing we did was all the kids were in the gym. And the year before, assemblies were banned because that was learning time lost. You can imagine what I feel about that. But anyways, before I was there, that had happened. And so we started off with an all-school assembly where the assistant principal and I had a dance-off to Whip and Nay Nay. That was back in that day. And the kids went crazy. They were completely crazy. And they had not ever seen leadership. Well, the kids that followed me knew I was crazy already. But the other ones, I mean, it was electric. And to see the staff, like with tears in their eyes about how excited they were to start school, it was awesome. And I didn't want to stop there, because I know something that Shelley and I talk about is it's not just about the first day, it's how do we get them running back in the next day. And so we challenge teachers to teach their best lessons the first 3 days of school. No syllabus, no rules, none of that. They already know they're not supposed to hit each other, supposed to be nice to each other, whatever. But teach the best that you've got for your content area. And it was amazing. Hands down, best. And really now that's what the beginning of school is like. They're always like, what are you going to do next year? I'm kind of like, well, at least they're only here 3 years, because I can't come up with that many ideas. So anyways, that's just one story of something that it was great to have Shelley, though, because she brainstormed with me the whole way of how do we make this happen.
Okay, so this question is for Shelley. We can imagine, based on the hashtag and chat of Lead Like a Pirate, that this book has helped and inspired many educators, especially principals, to transform their schools. What are some of the success stories and reflections they've shared with you that may guide our listeners?
Ooh, that's a great question. It's actually one of my favorite things to do is to scroll through the Lead Lab hashtag and see all the things that, principals, school leaders, and in any position are dropping in and sharing with the rest of the community. But I think at least the first thing that stands out to me is one of the things I love to see that comes across. Beth mentioned earlier that one of my passions has to do with the anchor conversations that are in the book. And I think that's resonated with a lot of people. And so we see sometimes, in the hashtag, other principals talking about, our superintendents or people in any role, coaches, talking about taking time. I'm heading out of my office, I'm taking time, I'm getting ready to drop anchors of appreciation for people, or I'm getting ready to be in classrooms and drop, whatever the anchor might be. There's multiple ways to do anchor conversations, but I love seeing the people being in classrooms and making that a point to get out and see. Beth talked about earlier, one of the things we really believe in, that's where the magic happens. If you are a leader in a school or a system, you've got to be in classrooms. You have to be there as much time as you possibly can. And then when you're there, I think one of the things that happens for us sometimes as leaders is we get into this place, we're so all about, wanting to hit our goals, hit our targets. We want all these great things to be happening for kids. And we can sometimes get stuck in this place where we're fix-it people, right? It's like we have this fix-it mentality, and you walk in a classroom, you walk around school like, ooh, that's good, but here's what could be better. Like, here's what could be next. And we find ourselves in that place. So what I love about the anchors of appreciation that we see come across Twitter that people are doing on a regular basis is that they're really about going to classrooms or wherever you are on campus and whatever the role, but drop into a classroom and ditch that fix-it mentality. And what you're going to do when you're in the classroom right now is you're only going to look for the things that are going right. You're only going to look for the things that you appreciate about that teacher, about that classroom. And that's the only message that you're going to give. You're going to leave off you're going to leave the grow off the glow and grow, right? You're just going to do this is what it is that I appreciate about the work that you do here. And I think sometimes we have to deliberately slow down and make ourselves do that, because if we stop and pause and take a moment to get out of the where do we need to grow and get better, and just take a look around and appreciate the things that are happening that make our schools great, that the great things, that the great gifts and talents that our people are contributing. It's an amazing place to be. And I think that it's something that we just don't do often enough. So when I see it come across Lead Lab, those anchors of appreciation, that makes me smile. I also love, Beth mentioned all the things that she likes to do with staff meetings and things, that when we see things come, and they come across a lot, that idea where we talk about our role in influencing and inspiring and motivating adults, when we see the things that principals and leaders are doing to take time out of their day to make sure they invest time in the adults in their system and the things that they do to create learning environments that make the staff want to run into the school, not just the students. And so those are some of the things that we see. There's tons of stuff, the great classroom experiences and all those things, but those are two that always make me smile.
Oh, love that. The hashtag, by the way, if you just type that into Twitter, Lead Lab, it is super inspiring. You can learn a lot and connect with people there. It's amazing. And I love that what you said about just acknowledging what you see and being appreciative. That goes so far with people.
It does.
We work so hard, and then just to be appreciated, just to say, hey, I noticed you did this. Thank you. That's huge.
Well, and I think what you said too, Laura, is it's appreciating it, but it's also that, and one of the things that we talk about in anchor conversation, the N stands for notice the impact. So it also, when you do that, it's that that piece of, I notice the things that you're like, when I'm in your classrooms, I actually notice the choices that you're making and the things that you're doing and the impact that they're having on students and on student learning and on student well-being. And that I'm not just there and walking through and passing by and saying my hello, but I'm there with these noticing eyes, and I'm going to see those things, and I'm going to make sure that I tell you what I see and what I notice and what I appreciate.
All right, this is for both of you. Would you please drop some ideas for staff meetings, for just, getting teachers excited? Share with us some of the cool stuff that you've done.
Sure. Well, I will start out just some staff meeting tips. One thing that I have committed to, and I know Shelley feels very much like this as well, is that we don't do anything in a staff meeting that could be done in an email, because time is precious. Our staff deserve better than that. The only time that we have done that is when we've gone over safety or like intruder drills, things like that, because that's something that's really not for email. So some just different tips. Our staff, we have professional development days almost monthly, like once a month. And then we have a staff meeting every month. Staff meeting, we have dedicated that time to always being personalized learning. So that looks lots of different ways. We have done ed camps with our staff before. That's a little more guided ed camps, but an hour is not quite an ed camp time, but still being able to do something like that. And then we've also done some Genius Hour PD with our staff as well. So staff kind of make their own, they've done that on PD days as well as in our staff meetings as well. And there's coming up with, okay, how is it tied back to our school goals, to your PD goals, but what are you doing and so you've seen staff do book studies with their peers, working on their own. And it's been really neat to see just the empowerment of that. Something else that we've done is we really have embraced and utilized Twitter a lot in our building. And so when we have those personalized times that we work together, we wrap up with a quick Twitter chat. And what's been neat is that people can be all throughout our building, throughout the district, and still join in and share. It takes forever for every person to talk out loud and share, but whenever we're doing a Twitter chat, you can share out so quickly. We've also done, and Shelley and I have done this within our workshops as well, just some speed dating. So what that looked like in one of our staff meetings, everyone read their own article through AMLE. They have so many great articles for middle level leaders or middle level educators. So everyone picked their own article, and then they would speed date with their peers to try to sell their article, why their article was the best. I mean, just something simple. And, but we have some examples of that in the book, definitely. And also like our Genius contracts for teachers, the link to that's in the book and on the website too. Shelley, do you have any to add too?
Yeah, sure. I'll add a couple. I think what Beth said too about anything that can be in an email doesn't belong on an agenda. One of the things that was really important to us as a school is, and we were very fortunate, we were able to have, at the time, there were staff meetings at the time when I took over, but there's once every week. They were about an hour and a half every week. And we switched all of those from that rote, let's talk about the recess duties. Let's talk about, whatever. We took all those things off the agenda and really made a commitment that every time, and I think it is a commitment that you need to make, is that, the time with your whole staff together is incredibly precious. So that time that we have together, we really committed to, it's about learning together. We read tons of articles together. I think that there's something that's really, really important in the work that we do as school leaders, that we believe in cultures of learning, and we talk about that all the time for our kids, but we really need to build a culture of learners among our staff. So reading articles, doing book studies, there was almost no meeting that we had where we weren't learning something together. And there's so many ways to do that now in quick fashion. You can read a blog, you can read a short article. Beth talked about, we can all read something on the same topic and, different things and compare notes. So I think that that's one of the things that I would share. I think the other is that staff meetings, and I think we need to change the name to something else, and it's escaping me what we should call it now. But anyway, another one is they don't always have to be led by you. And so we always loved we would switch it up, and a grade level team would host the meeting, and we would move it to one of their classrooms. And so they would share and talk about practices and things that they were doing that were working with kids. And they would host it, in their classrooms. We would often do it with drinks and food and, and let them sort of host the party, in the room. But I think it goes back to that whole idea, we aren't the only experts, that there's a lot to learn from all of us together as a team. And so turning that over to people, this is first grade's time to share, this is second grade's time to share. And really when you are doing that around a particular goal or a particular topic that you have in common, something that you're focused on together as a school, I think that that's an incredibly powerful way to spend time together in a staff meeting.
I really agree with Shelley so much on that, sharing the ownership of getting others. One of the our last PD day that we had as a staff, we made sure we found out, what do people need? What do you still need? We've been working so hard because collective efficacy is huge. Like, we need to have that collective PD. Individualization is a big deal as well, but we need to make sure that we have that strong collective goals as well. And then we actually kind of ran a conference but all the presenters were our teachers, and it was awesome because they said, hey, we need more work on formative assessment. Okay, great. Now who wants to present about it? And so it was neat to see that. And I would really like to get we actually have some tech interns that are students. They've led PD for our staff as well. So like turning it over to the kids a little bit, let the kids do some of that PD. And something else that kind of goes along with this that we share about is that to make time for fun and building relationships. In the schools that Shelley and I have had the opportunity to lead, we had to make sure that culture starts with trust. And so we do summer retreats as well. There are a lot of resources in Lead Like a Pirate for that as well. Off campus, off site, we do not talk about school goals. We do not talk about anything that has to do with what we're doing in the classroom. It's all about building trust. It's all about having fun together. It's all about serving together. And we can't lose sight of that. And a lot of times people are like, well, this stuff is just time wasters. No, not at all. It's building trust. Every meeting and every time that we're together, we always do something to build trust. I try not to call them team builders because people kind of have that thought about that, but making sure that we take time, even if it's every meeting we have, we start with celebrations. And sometimes we just do personal celebrations. Sometimes it's school related. Sometimes it's celebrating risks. But when you do that, when you hear what people celebrate, you also find out what they're passionate about, which helps you to be able to bring out their greatness as well.
If there's time for one more thing too, I think something else that I would add is this idea that we talked about staff being people who also share and staff being people who present. I think another great way to spend time together with staff, and we made this a priority in every role that I've served in as a leader, is also giving teachers opportunity to be in each other's classrooms. And, learning doesn't happen just inside the staff meeting room. It doesn't just happen in the library after school where you're all together. And I know for me that probably the best learning experience I've ever had as an educator is when I actually came out of the classroom and was in a role where I had the opportunity to observe teacher after teacher after teacher and all the things that they did in their classroom. It's probably the best professional learning I've ever done in my career. And so creating time, and it's not easy to figure that out. And it goes back to what made me think of it was when Beth was talking about trust. And the idea, we talk in the book about trust being, the oxygen of the school system. You can build compliance, no problem, without trust, but you will not build commitment and you will not thrive as a school without trust in your system. And so you have to get the trust in place. But when Beth was talking about that, it made me think about the opportunities that we've had to get people into each other's classrooms and give each other feedback and ask each other questions about the work that they see happening. And so it's another great way to spend time with staff and to give staff opportunities that go beyond what a typical staff meeting that we think of, is all about.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think really for us to be able to take those risks as individuals, as teachers in the classrooms, we need to feel that trust, not just with our administrators, but also with our colleagues as well, because that's where we start being able to branch out and doing different things, and that's where the magic really happens.
Yeah. Well, I think something to go along with that, Elizabeth, is the idea, administrators and leaders and people in different roles talk all the time about we want people to take risks. We want people to take risks. But the reality is that the rubber meets the road when a teacher takes a risk and you respond. And so it's really how you as the leader respond to that. So if they take a risk and they fail miserably, what do you do and how do you how do you react to that? Or do you beat them up? Is that, a part of their evaluation now because they did this bad stuff or bad thing in the classroom? Or do you celebrate the fact that, good for you, you were out of your comfort zone, and let's just talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about today, and let's talk about what tomorrow could be, because, and bravo, because thank you for not doing the exact same thing that you've done for, the last 3 years. And now how can I help? How can I, you took the first step, what can I do? And so our response, and it is something that can get frustrating sometimes, that people, take risks. And then people get beat up for the risk when it fails. And so that's on us, and incumbent on us as the leaders in the schools and the systems to celebrate that in a way that keeps people taking them and then honing the skill and getting better. Because the reality is, for us as adults too, when we try something new, we need practice. Just like anybody else, any skill, anytime we try something new, we have to understand that practice takes time. And the first time we try something new, it's not going to be perfect.
Exactly.
It's really modeling what we want to see happening in the classrooms between the teachers and the students too.
Yeah, definitely.
I love that. So as we wrap up, please share how listeners can connect with you both, and also what's coming up for you in the near future.
Awesome. Well, I'll get started because I'm so excited to share this. Shelley and I, we sat down last year after the book was out and really brainstormed about how can we continue to support the crew? How can we continue to support leaders? And as leaders, we're for me, I love to read, and I know that I typically have 2 or 3 books going at a time, but when I meet leaders, when I'm at conferences, they said, we just struggle finding time to do everything. And so Shelley and I brainstormed, and we said, we'd like to figure out twofold. How can we continue to support leaders? How can we give a voice to a person in the field that are doing amazing things? And so it's getting closer. I'm not sure how far out Shelley may have. We're almost there. We have developed a Lead Like a Pirate guide series. And so it will be shorter books and on one topic. So a leader could pick this up and potentially just read it over the weekend. And our very first book is going to be called Lead with Culture. And I don't know that we've completely solidified the subtitle there, but it's all about making time for what matters. And it's written actually by Jay Billy, who brought us together. So it's kind of neat to be able to have him share our first book. And it will be all ways that you can build culture within your school, from your culture with your community, culture with your parents, your students, etc. And then our second book will be very closely following that one. And it is about leading with literacy and how to develop that foundation of literacy as a leader. How are you being the lead reader in your school? And that's by amazing elementary principal, Mandy Ellis. She is in Illinois. So for me, I know Shelley is too, super excited about being able to give a voice to both of these amazing leaders, but also to be able to support, because there's times for me that I don't have time to read a whole 300-page book on leadership, but by golly, I could become more of an expert on this topic or this topic. And so super, super excited to get that shared out. And I know you also wanted us to share how to get, Twitter is a great way to get in touch with me. So at Beth Houf, I like DMs a lot better than emails, because emails, right? Sorry. Oh.
Well, and I think, Beth, you said it all in terms of what's next. And Twitter, you gave our Twitter handles at the beginning. Our website, leadlikeapirate.net. I work constantly to try to get better at the DMs, but I'm usually better with an email response. Although I will, if you do DM me, usually I'll see it and say, can you send that to me in an email? But so I will get there that way. But we'd love to connect with anyone in your audience. We love talking leadership. We love talking school culture. We love connecting with other educators in our own communities across the country, across the world. We live and breathe this stuff. We're passionate about it. So please stay in touch with us. And thank you so much for having us on the show.
Definitely. We appreciate you having us for sure.
Absolutely.
Beth and Shelley, thank you so much for joining us. And I love all the ideas and the passion. And you're just so genuine. And you've transformed your schools, and it can be done. And that's just
Thank you.
Just my heart is so happy. I know our audience enjoyed hearing about your personal journeys and learning how to lead like a pirate. A huge thank you to our amazing audience who tuned in on the Lead Up Teach YouTube and podcast channels.
And we encourage everyone to check out past Lead Up Teach episodes on our YouTube channel and to subscribe to the Lead Up Teach podcast on iTunes. You can listen to past interviews on the go.
Well, have a terrific night, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. Good night, and remember, lead on and lead up.